Kuf Samech Aleph 161. We are picking up on Kuf Samech Amud Beis 160b, and we're picking up at Heichan Edim Chosman. We have a little bit to do today. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 17 lines up from the bottom. It says, we had a little bit of fun yesterday at the end of the paragraph. All right, we'll catch up today. So what's our shir this morning is sponsored by Alan Wiseman in memory of his mother-in-law, Mildred Newman Malka Bas Yisrael Usher. We hope the merit of our Talmud Torah and the Shema will have an aliyah. Thank you. So let's begin, or let's continue, I should say. So very exciting parak of Get Pashut. So we're discussing the distinction specifically between a Get Makusher and a Get Pashut. So far the distinctions we've seen is that number one, a Get Pashut, which represents a basic document. And again, remember, we ended up yesterday with the interesting idea that the origin, genesis of this Get Makusher was from where? From the Kohanim. We ended off again, because again, the Gemara says, Kohanim Ragzanim, the Kohanim are shorter fuse, and therefore in order to go ahead and create a little bit of a delay in the divorce process, so Chazal instituted this particular type of get that would just simply take a little bit more time. There's no greater esoteric reasoning to it. Just takes longer in the hope that in the interim, this additional time, they would calm down a little bit. It would offer a cooling down period. We then ended off with Tosis, who discussed the idea, so what does this mean? Does this mean that Kohanim can only use, it's a very important yesod, because from the Gemara it sounds like one can make the argument that if a Kohen wants to divorce his wife, he must use a get makusher. So that Tosis says, but that leaves us with a problem. What's the problem? The problem is today, when Tosis says today, so today, if Tosis says today is 1,000 years ago, if Tosis is already 1,000 years ago, we're not really proficient in writing a get makusher. So if remember again, Tosis gave a couple of different answers, among them that Chazal only legislated this for a town of Kohanim, either a specific town or a specific group of particularly short-fused Kohanim. Tosis says, Chazal never legislated that a Kohen has to use a get makusher. Chazal just simply said the Kohen has the ability, if he wants, to use a get makusher. But halacha l'maaseh, there's no obligation. So we left off with that. Now the Gemara jumps back into understanding the distinction. Heichan edim chosmin. So where do the edim stand? I will say it's right across from Tosos v'im isa. So heichan edim chosmin. So we'll say we understand. The Mishnah told us that on a get pashut, which is just a regular document. So where do the edim sign? Right under the text. You have text, signatures, Shalom Yisrael. What about on a get makusher? Where do the edim sign? Heichan edim chosmin. Rav Huna amar bein kesher lekesher. So Rav Huna says between the folds. Now I will say what that sounds like. And this is based on the Rashbam's understanding of the Mishnah, is that the way this is unfolding is like this. On a get makusher, you have a line of text, blank line. Line of text, blank line of text, so on and so forth. Then you fold the shtar. Each of those blank slots becomes an opportunity for the aid to go ahead and sign. Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba Amar, Achori haksav u'keneged haksav. I will say now, it sounds like according to Rav Huna is saying that the eidim sign on the same side as the text. So they're signing on the same side on the text, in between the lines of text. Yirmiyah bar Abba comes along and says, no, Achori haksav u'keneged haksav. Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba says that they sign on the back side of the shtar, opposite the text. Now what that means is, one could have thought perhaps on the other side of the shtar, underneath the text, in the same place where they would have signed, had they been affixing their signatures on the side of the text. Therefore, Rabbi Yirmiyah says, no, they sign on the opposite side of the shtar and opposite the text. So the Gemara says, so what's according to Rav Huna, who says that you go ahead and you sign in between the lines. So the Gemara says, Kasaka Daitin, Ben Kesha the Kesha, Migavoy. So we assume that what that means on both sides is the following. That what is Rav Huna saying? You sign between the lines, but where? Migavoy. Migavoy means on the front of the document. So the way this works is I just described before. Line of text, empty line. Line of text, empty line. And in each of those empty lines, there is the signature of a witness. But says the Gemara, says Rami Bar Chama, there's a problem. Because that's Rabbaha, Hahume Kosher, Dika Asal Kamed Rebbe. We'll say there was a certain case of the get Mukosher that came before Rebbe. And what happens? Va'am Rebbe, Ein Zman Bazeh. And Rebbe said, there's no Zman, there's no date written in the second. So also we've discussed extensively the need for a date in a document, in a let's say in a business document, in a loan document. You need the date because the date creates the starting point for the shibud karkos, for the lien against property. Of course, again, for a divorce document, you need a date in order to know as of which date the divorce is effective. So this get makusha comes before Rebbe. And he says there's no zman, there's no date in the get. Amrli Reb Shimon Rebbe the Rebbe, so Reb Shimon, his son, was there, and he said to him, Shema bein kisharav muvla. Perhaps the is in one of the folds. Also, we will see that the way they used to go ahead and do a get makusher is that, remember, it's this accordion style shtar, and after they finished it, what would they do? They would not bunch it up is the wrong word, fold it up, and then they would sew it together. They would sew it together so that they would go ahead and we'll say, by the way, just so you also should know, this has, in certain respects, for regular gittin, this actually makes Kabbalah Saget a little bit easier. You know, the halacha is, by Kabbalah Saget, a woman has to receive the entirety of the get in her hands. There can't be any part of the get that extends outside of her hands for a variety of different reasons. So the beauty of the get makusher is that it folds up into a much smaller thing. So today, for example, when we give a get, what we do is we take the get, we actually fold it up into a much smaller square, so that when the husband puts the get into the wife's hands, when she holds her hand, she can receive it in both of her hands as there's no extension. It's another benefit of the makusher. In any event, so Rebbe can't find this man, Rebbe can't find the date. Rebbe Shimon says maybe it's muvla, maybe it's absorbed or it's swallowed up literally into the folds. Sapalye, so they undid the shtar. In other words, they undid like the stitching of the shtar that held it together. The chazye, and they saw that indeed the date was there. So says the Gemara, the Rebbe, and remember, Rabbi Bar Chama is asking on Rav Huna. Rav Huna said that the signatures of the witnesses is being kesher lekesher, between literally each of the knots, but it means between each line, between each of the folds. We're assuming now that Rav Huna means that the witnesses are signing on the front end of the shtar, on the front where the text is. So if this is true that Rav Huna holds that the witnesses sign on the actual side of the text, ein zman bazeh, ve'ein eidim bazeh mi bailei. Both say when Rebbe looked at that shtar, what should have jumped out at him is there's a lot more here that's missing than the zman. What else seems to be missing? The signatures of the witnesses as well. Amarlei misavris ben kesher lekesher migavoy. So no. Do you think that Rav Huna meant between each of the knots, between each of the folds on the front end? Lo, ben kesher lekesher me'avroy. Oh, I will say Rav Huna holds the halacha l'maisa again, signing between each of the folds on the back. So I will say, interestingly enough, what comes out over here, according to the Gemara, is that both Rav Huna and Reb Yirmiyah are both agreeing that on a get makusher, the witnesses sign on the back side of the shtar, on the side opposite the text, not on the side of the text. The machlokes is the placement of the actual signatures. Rav Huna is going to say bein kesher lekesher, and Reb Yirmiyah bar Abba is going to say acharei aksav ukeneged aksav. Again, we'll further define exactly what this means. Gemara says, "Amrei misavris lekesher lekesher megavai lo lekesher lekesher me'avroi v'nechesh dilma zayif v'kasav ma'idiboi v'chasimi sahadi." So I don't understand. I'll say if that's the case, see here's the shaila. If that's the case, then if you're having the witnesses sign on the back of the shtar, it would seem to be that a get makusher is ripe for some type of forgery. Because what you're supposed to say on a regular shtar, a get pashut. So what's the beauty in the simplicity of the get pashut? What's the beauty in it? Text, signatures. Therefore, what? You can't add anything. Right? You really see everything. You can't add anything. If you have a get makusher, if you're telling me now that according to everyone, the witnesses are standing on the back side of the shtar, so we'll say, what's to stop what? What's to stop someone? What's to stop one of the individuals from going ahead and just adding a few more lines of text on the shtar? To which the Gemara says, no. We'll say at the end of the shtar, it says sharir v'kayim. We'll say sharir v'kayim means of this shtar have been upheld. So essentially, when you have that phrase sharir v'kayim, that signals this is the end of the shtar. Therefore, if you were to find more text underneath sharir v'kayim, you would know with absolute certainty that this is a forgery. To which the Gemara says, 1 second. Benechosh dilma kasav ma'idiboi. Va'adir kasos shar v'kayim achrina. So I say, so why can't someone go ahead? It says shar v'kayim, then what? Add in more text and put in a second shar v'kayim. In other words, then maybe you could just say stylistically it worked out nice to have a shar v'kayim here, a shar v'kayim here, and there's just some extra text in the middle. To which the Gemara says, by the way, you should know these are very important Gemaras because it's from these Gemaras, it's from these sugyas that the fundamentals of Hilchos Shtaros emerge. To which the Gemara tells us, Chad shar v'kayim kasvinon, shrei shar v'kayim lo kasvinon. Because a shtar has only one shar v'kayim per shtar. You don't write shar v'kayim twice. Therefore, if you were to go ahead and what? If you were to go ahead and see a shtar that says shar v'kayim, text, and then a second shar v'kayim, you know with absolute certainty that that second block of text is a forgery. To which the Gemara says, V'leichosh, Dilma mochik le l'shar v'kayim, v'kasev mai diboy, v'hadar kasev shar v'kayim. So why don't I say this? So we'll say I can still forge a document if I want. It's very simple. Fine. You told me. So now we'll say let's go through what we learned. We've learned a lot already in just 12 minutes. Right. So again, so number one, what have we established? We've established one that every shtar has to have a shar v'kayim. We'll say shar v'kayim is essentially code for right. Shtar ends here. Shtar ends here. This is the end of the shtar. We're done. We've also established that number two, you can only have one shar v'kayim per shtar. You can't have two shar v'kayims. The Gemara says, but if somebody wants to forge a shtar, what could they do? Rabbi say, just erase the first shar v'kayim, put in the text, and then put but then put shar v'kayim at the end of that additional text, and you could go ahead and you can establish a forgery. To which the Gemara says, so what's the Gemara says? I'll tell you why. Tuluya mikuyemes kshera. Well, so it's actually very interesting. Take a look at the Rashbam for just a moment. Last Rashbam on the page. Umishani ha'amar Rabbi Yochanan tuluya mikuyemes kshera. Ta'a hasofer. Well, so let's say the sofer makes a mistake on the shtar. V'higi v'tala teva ushtayim ben shita l'shita. V'achar kin kaima b'sofa shtar. Promotion the kosim teva plonis the benechiti sharakan. So we'll say we're going to discuss this in greater depth on the days. But the Gemara is talking about here says the following. Let's say the sofer makes a mistake and has to add something in. So the halacha is that a sofer, and both again we'll discuss this in greater depth, a sofer can add something in being sheet to the shita. So he can make an insert. He can make an insert in between the lines. Now we'll discuss what he has to do at the end of the shtar in order to uphold that insert. So tuluya mikuyam shtar. So we'll say what tuluya means is an insert. The reason why it calls an insert a tuluya is why? Because often what would happen is an insert would be inserted between lines. So it would look like it was hanging off the text. So tuluya mikuyamas kshera, top of kuf samech aleph, machak pasul. I will say at the end of the day, if there is an erasure in the shtar, it is pasul. It is pasul. So I will say, interestingly enough, inserts are fine. We'll see changes are fine if they are upheld, and we'll discuss how that happens. But erasures are pasul. Va'af api shemakuyam. And even I will say what? Now this is actually very interesting. Even if the erasure is upheld, in other words, even if you have a supporting note in the document that says this erasure was done by the sofer underneath the presence of the Eidim, and the erasure was done for the following reasons, the erasure is still going to be pasul. Now, when is that so? We will see. There are times when you are permitted to erase something in the shtar. A sofer is writing the shtar and he makes a mistake, even before the shtar is complete. So he wants to erase it. That's how that's done. See, I will say that an erasure is going to be pasul. Ella, amud aleph, second line down. Ella, b'makom sharir v'kayim. Oh, I will say, when is an erasure always going to be pasul? An erasure is going to be pasul when it's done in the place where it would have said sharir v'kayim. We'll say that's where our antenna go up. That's where we get a little bit nervous when somebody's tampering with sharir v'kayim. Ukashir sharir v'kayim. So I will say, listen to this. If you see a shtar, and the shtar has an erasure, where in the place where it would have said sharir v'kayim, and the size of the erasure is exactly the size of the text where it could have said what? Sharir v'kayim. That's where antenna go up and say something does not look right in this particular shtar. So the Gemara says the following. So we'll say, here's what we've established. According to Rav Huna, Rav Huna. So Edim are signing. Rav Huna's lashon is ben kasher lekasher, between one fold and the next fold, between one knot and the next knot. But again, we've established achori haksav, on the back side of the document. Okay, so that's Rav Huna. Will Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba, so we'll say third line down from the top. Will Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba, Dormi achori haksav, ukeneged haksav mibachutz. Leichosh, so we'll say now, what does Rabbi Yirmiyah say? Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba says, you sign opposite the star on the back side. So both Rabbi Yirmiyah and Rav Huna are agreeing. Now on a get makusher, you are signing on the back side of the star. And Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba says, achori haksav, ukeneged haksav. You're signing on the back side of the document opposite the text. So watch this. It says the Gemara, "Leichush dilma ksiv megavoy my devoy umachtim sahadi yiseri ma'avrayin." Now, when we envision what Rabbi Yirmiyah means, what do we envision? So on the front side of the document, what do you have? You have the text. Then on the back side of the document, what do you have? The signatures of the witnesses. Now, what we assume is that the signatures of the witnesses are written in the same direction of the text. So witness 1, witness 2, witness 3. Now we assume that what happens over here, that we align those signatures in accordance with what? With the actual size of the text. So witness number 1 begins with line number 1 of the text, and witness number 3 ends up with line number 3 of the text. That's the assumption we're dealing with over here. So says the Gemara, at the end of the day, perhaps if somebody wants to forge a document, what could they do? Add some more text on the front side of the document, and what? Just add more witnesses on the back side. So as long as the assumption is, I'll get Makush according to Rabbi Yirmiyah, as long as you have witnesses opposite the text, so then you're going to be good. So meaning this leaves me open to a forgery. Let me add on more text on the front end, sign more witnesses on the back end, but doesn't it raise our antenna that what? Sure. That you have more than 3. Makush only needs 3 witnesses. Why do you have more than 3 witnesses? I just wanted more witnesses, right? I'm looking to give out more kibudim. Right? So I said, now, by the way, there would be a good reason why somebody could say they'd want more witnesses, which is why. We'll say, remember, if you're engaging in a transaction, remember, not a divorce right now, but in a regular transaction, a person will want more edim because, remember, the more edim, the greater the kol. Sometimes you may have a vested interest in greater publicity for this particular transaction. And therefore, again, a person can forge the document, add on text, add on additional signatures, and just say that he wanted more edim. It's amazing. Amrle, mi savris edim kisidron chasimi. So do you think that when Rabbi Yirmiyah says that the witnesses sign achori aksav u'keneged aksav, do you think that they're signing along the same lines, literally along the same lines as the text? In other words, we have the situation on both sides that you have the text of the document over, and you have the witnesses signing in accordance with the actual text. That's not how they sign on both sides. This is amazing. The Gemara says, "Mi savris edim kisidron chasimi." No, they don't sign on both sides along the same lines of the text. Rather, mimata lemala chasimi. They both say this is amazing. According to Rabbi Yirmiyah, we have the witnesses sign perpendicular to the text. And we'll say, now, what does this mean? This is an incredible cha. Perpendicular text, what does it mean? We'll say, so what you do is you have the front side of the text, you have the text. Over. The witnesses sign their name from the last line of the text going up to the top of the text. So we'll say, so their signature begins at the last line. So they're signing perpendicular to the text, right? Am I being clear? Yeah. Right. So if this is the text, I know this is very helpful. Right, your drawings, right? This is the text. So again, good. All right. So good. So then they're just signing perpendicular to the text. Good. But the chap over here is that their signature, the first letter of their first name begins where? Begins where? On the last line of the text. Therefore, I will say, what happens? What happens if you were to try to go ahead and what? If you were to try to go ahead and add in more text, the forgery is clear. Why? Why? Because the mice, again, is more text extending now below the first letter of the first name. And therefore the forgery, we'll say it's really incredible. Switch the Gemara to the following. But 1 second. So fine. You've taken care now of the ability, or I should say, you have now prevented adding of additional text. You can't add more text into a get mokosher. Why? Because the mice, again, the addition is going to be clearly visible because it's going to extend past the first letter of the first name of the signatures. However, again, says the Gemara, "V'leichosh dilma misramya reuse b'shita achrona." The guy is lei b'shita achrona. We'll say, let's say this let's say one of the parties to the shtar doesn't like the information contained in the last line of the shtar. So what does he want to do? He's going to cut out the last line of the shtar. So he says the Gemara, that still won't work. The guy is lay Ruvain. So we'll say, now you'll say to yourself, well, of course it's not going to work, because we'll say, let's imagine for a moment that the one of the witnesses is Ruvain ben Yaakov. So we'll say, so what's going to happen? If he cuts out the last, I'm sorry. So now, let me go back. We've established now that you can't go ahead and add on text to a get mukusha. It's going to be Rabbi Abba, because then the text will extend past the names of the Eidim, and it's a clear addition. What happens if one of the parties wants to cut out the last line? Now, Bossa, here's the problem. If he cuts out the last line, what does he end up cutting out? Ruvain, one of the names of the witnesses. Says Gemara, that's okay. The guy is a Ruvain Bade, or Miskasher Beben Yaakov. Oh, so maybe you'll say like this, that if he cuts, what's to stop him from cutting out the last line of the text? You're going to say, well, the big problem is he's cutting out the name of the Eid, Ruvain. That's okay, I will say. Because what's still left? Ben Yaakov. Right? And after all, we learned, I will say, going back in days, we learned this nan, Ben Ish Ploni Eid Kasher. I will say at the end of the day, if you sign a shtar, if a person were to sign a shtar, Ben Ish Ploni, right? If you were to sign Ben, your father's name, Eid, that indeed would be a kosher signature. That'd be a valid edus. So in this case over here, what's to stop someone from forging the document? Now again, by simply what? Assumes that there's something in the last line you want cut out. So if you cut out the last line, you're going to take out the first name of the witness. That's okay. The shtar by having it say what? Ben Ruvain 8, to which the Gemara says, this is not Ben Ishploni 8 kosher. Tichsiv Ruvain Ben Bechad Dara the Yaakov 8 Iluvain. To which the Gemara says no. The way we have the witnesses sign of us says the following. That we go and we have the witnesses sign is Ruvain Ben is in one line. When we say one line of us, remember this is still going in Amir Bar Abba's perpendicular signatures. So Ruvain Ben corresponds to one line of text. Yaakov 8 corresponds to another line of text. Therefore, if you were to go ahead and cut out the last line of text, you're not just taking out Ruvain. What else are you taking out? Ben. So we'll say at that point in time, again, you would be left with nothing, right? I mean, you'd be left with the father's name, Eid, and halacha l'maisa would be clear that somebody's trying to forge or somebody's trying to alter the document. V'leichosh Dilma, Guy is a Ruvain Ben, umiskasher b'Yaakov Eid. But I don't understand. So let's go with this. So let's say now you're writing Ruvain Ben on one line. Someone's coming along and tampering with the shtarabo. So they're cutting out the last line. So they remove now Ruvain Ben. Can't you be machshir the document with what? With Yaakov 8. After all, this nan ish ploni 8 kosher. Rabbi say this is not preferable, but halacha l'maisa, if somebody goes ahead and writes their first name, right? Ruvain, as you say Yaakov, and puts 8. Technically speaking, the get is going to be kosher. Now take a look at the Rashbam. There's an important caveat to this. It's 4 lines up from the bottom. Only 8 kosher. Now you can only sign Yaakov 8 if 2 criteria. Of course, criteria number 1 is that your name is Yaakov. Right? Criteria number 2 is that, bless you, is that they're able to recognize your signature. So the Gemara says, you're not, what the Gemara is just trying to point out is the Gemara thought that we had a forged or a tamper-proof shtar. How do you have a tamper-proof shtar? By having the Eidim sign in a perpendicular fashion. To which the Gemara says, well, not necessarily, because you could still cut out that last name, even though you're taking out the first name of the Eid, and what? Going ahead and even though we wanted to say write Ruvain and Ben on the same line, still you could go ahead and the Gemara is positing you can still go ahead and have the shtar be kosher with just Yaakov 8. After all, we learned that halacha l'maisa, if somebody signs on a shtar with just his name and 8, and you're able to uphold his signature, such a document ultimately works. To which the Gemara says, the following. Let me just finish this train of thought. To which the Gemara says, this not ish ploni 8 kosher, the kasiv 8. To which the Gemara says, what's the case over here? Where we didn't write 8. So I will say the case over here is all there is a name. So in this case over here, I will say the way it was signed was Ruvain ben Yaakov. Suppose in a case like this, if you were to go ahead and lop off the last line of the shtar, which contains what? Which contains Ruvain ben, all you would be left with is what? Yaakov, and no aid, and therefore the shtar would not be kosher. To which the Gemara says, the olam the kasev aid, or it could even be in a case where aid is written. But this is a case where what? The adinan ba the ha chasimas yada lav amud beis lav diakovu. Rabbi say the case over here is where what? We know that the signature is not the signature of Yaakov. So by the way, you understand, the bottom line is, and this is just an important mindset that going into the sugya, which is about to say, if somebody wants to cheat, and if somebody wants to go ahead and tamper with the shtar, and they have a singular goal to do this, the same way if a person wants to cheat in a transaction, the system cannot protect against every single type of forgery and against every single type of cheating. We can't do it. If somebody mamish is like a dedicated Rama, if somebody's a dedicated Rasha, if somebody's a dedicated cheat, the system can't protect against them. All the system could do is create a general mechanism that is able to prevent a forgery. But there is no system in place that is perfect to prevent everything. To which the Gemara says, here's what we've got. What we've got over here, Lamaisa, is the following. With the perpendicular signatures, at least what you have Rabbi say is a pretty good system. A pretty good system that says number one, that's what? That if you add on, what it does, number one, is it prevents the add-on of text. That's what we've established. You can't add any more text, because if you add any more text, then what? It's going to be clear that there's text that extends beneath the first word of the first letter of the first name of the eights. That's a clear add-on. Can a person go ahead and manipulate the shtar by lopping off the last line and still upholding the shtar through the signatures that are present? The answer is technically yes. Technically yes, because even if you were to lop off the last line, and even though now we're saying that in one line of text is Ruvain ben, could you be Mekayim shtar ultimately again through Yaakov 8? The answer on a technical level is yes. But Lamais, again, at least this perpendicular signature has a good way, ultimately is a good mechanism to at least avoid some forms of tamper. But the Gemara goes on. The Gemara says, Bishmei da'avu achasam. Maybe Rabbi said, maybe what's happening over here is the following. Maybe, look at the Rashbam, top Rashbam, second line down. Bishmei da'avu, Yaakov chasam Ruvain, v'chein min hago lichtom l'chvod aviv. Rabbi said, maybe the particular aid ultimately is signing the name of something. In other words, the Gemara is suggesting over here is the following. If somebody tampers with the shtar, and they go ahead and they lop off Ruvain 8, Ruvain ben, and all you're left with is Yaakov 8. Well, we know that that's not Yaakov's signature. Maybe it's whose signature? It's Ruvain, the son's signature. But why is Ruvain signing his father's name? To which the Gemara suggests, it's a covet. It's a sign of respect and honor to his father. Look at the Rashbam again. Yaakov chasam Ruvain. Excuse me. V'dilma b'shmei avua Yaakov chasam Ruvain. Maybe Ruvain signed his father's name. Min hago lichtom lichvod aviv. So this is very helpful also with check cashing and many different things. Right? It's just a sign of covet, right? And potential revenue. If he goes ahead and he signs his father's name. I will say, but the point over here is maybe we're suggesting the following. See, the Gemara was suggesting, the Gemara answered that you can't be machshir this shtar with Yaakov 8. Why? Because we know for a fact that what? This is not Yaakov's signature. Maybe it's not Yaakov's signature. It's Reuben's signature. But Reuben, why are you signing your father's name as a display of covet for his father? As a sign of covet, the son sublimates his identity to that of his father and ultimately signs with his father's name. To which the Gemara says, no. Lo shavik inish shmei didei v'chasem b'shmei davua. A person does not go ahead and forsake his own name to sign in the name of his father. There's a lot of in this as well, which is Lamais, again, as much as a son wants to mechabit his father, it's exceptionally important for a son to have his own distinct identity. It's interesting. Rav Soloveitchik points this out on a totally separate level. He points out again in Hilchos Avelos. The Rav makes an amazing observation. The Rav says that if you look at the laws of Avelos, the longest mourning period that we have in halacha is for a parent. Right? Avelus for a parent goes on, right? Kaddish it's for 11 months, but Avelus goes on for an entire year. Yet again, for every single other type of loss, a person loses a spouse, a person loses a child, sibling, 30 days. Shloshim and Avelus is done. The Rav says it's so interesting, it's so counterintuitive, because the loss of a parent, right, as painful as it may be, is also the most natural loss. Right? In the world of losses, we always hope that it's parents, children who bury parents, and never chas v'shalom the opposite. Every other loss has the potential ultimately to be traumatic. Yet so the Rav says something amazing. The Rav says because on a Judaic level, he says that the loss of a parent is spiritually one of the most traumatic losses. Why? Because when a parent dies, the individual loses a certain part of their identity as well. Meaning the first part of our identity is that we are known as so-and-so's child. That's the first part of our persona. Then as we grow up, we begin to develop our own identity as well. Therefore, the Rav says there's always a part of the identity of the child that is interwoven into the parent. So, and again, even on a Masorah level, our parents represent our Masorah, our link in the Masorah, our link back to Har Sinai. So when a person loses a parent, they lose a little bit of themselves as well. And there's a certain spiritual trauma that exists there that does not exist by other types of losses. So just pointing this out over here, the Gemara says, it could be that does a son want to be mechabed his father? Absolutely. But a son is never going to and should never abdicate his own identity and assume the identity of the father in order to mechabed the father. So a son is not going to sign in the name of his father because, again, not appropriate, not healthy. He's not going to give up his own identity for the identity of the father. Incredible yesod. So the Gemara is supposed to say something amazing. Dilma, Simna ba'almahu d'shar. Rabbi said, this is amazing. See, right, maybe what he's doing is the following. Maybe the son is taking the father's name, using his father's name as a simon. And they're supposed to say that what it's saying over here is that comes along Reuven ben Yaakov, and Reuven ben Yaakov says, you know what, as we're going to just a little bit, there are some people, Rabbi say, who their signatures were symbols. So maybe Reuven ben Yaakov is going to take his father's name, Yaakov, and not sign in his father's name, but rather what? Utilize his father's name as his symbol, as his signet. This is how I, Reuven ben Yaakov, sign. My symbol is Yaakov. After all, the Gemara. So we have precedent for this. The Gemara says, Daha Rav Tzayer Kura. Rav Rabosai used to sign, his signature was a fish. He would make a picture of a fish, and this, everyone knew when you saw the fish, this was Rav's signature. Rabbi Chanina Tzayer Charusa. Rabbi Chanina, and he used to draw a date palm. A date palm, this was his signature. Rav Chisda Samech, Rav Chisda used to just sign a big Samech, right? That was his signature. Rav Hoshia Ayin, Rav Hoshia used to sign an Ayin. Rava Baravuna Makusa, and Rava Baravuna was ultimately, they changed it over here to Rabbi, I believe. Rava Baravuna used to go ahead and say, and Makusa, Makusa is the mast of a ship. The mast of a ship. I'll just say something interesting. Take a look at the Rashban for just a moment. Rav Tzarbosek, the point the Gemara is making over here is you see that people used to sign not with their names, but they used to have a symbol. Now, look at the Rashban. Rav Tzar Kura, Tzuras Hadakaya Osa B'Shtaras, B'Mokum Chasimaso. So ultimately, again, he would often go ahead and make the picture of a fish when signing a document, and this was in lieu of his actual signature. Ukvayaduli Olam, Shezeu Chasimaso, Umoel Kechasimas Shmo. And ultimately, again, when you saw that fish, and again, I guess he drew the fish in a particular way as well, that was the Chasima, that was the signature of Rab. And I watch this. Now, obviously, what's the obvious kasha? Why a fish? Right? Why a fish? Now, you understand a little bit like the Samech of Chisda, Rav Chisda, I understand. The Ayin of Rav Oshia, I understand. We'll say Rabbi Barafuna, the master of the ship. Why? Rabbi Barafuna was wealthy. The Pashtus, again, he must have moved merchandise through ships. So you understand. So look at what the Rashbam says. So you're asking why did Rabbi use the fish? Mefarish tam amay tzir kura v'charusa. So remember, there are two of them that are interesting. So Rabbi used to draw a fish, and Rabbi Chanina used to draw a date palm. So we'll say that Rashbam says, and those who try to explain that mefarish tam amay tzir kura v'charusa. Toa. If you think there's some deeper meaning to the fish or to the date palm, you're mistaken. V'shema al shem ma'aseyem, because Rashbam says it can be very simple. Zen nahag le'echol dagim, right? After all, Rab used to like to eat fish. V'zeh nahag b'tmarim. And Rav Chanina used to like dates. V'simna ba'alma hayu osim. And ultimately, again, I will say, in other words, what is the Rashbam saying? And I will say another profound yesod. Everything has a deeper meaning. Not everything. I will say, by the way, this is exceptionally important because, sometimes, I'll tell you where this comes up all the time. This comes up in the realm of the interpersonal dialogue. Sometimes someone says something. And I will say, it's an amazing thing that sometimes, Chazal tell us, Chacham mizara b'divrech, be careful with your words. But, sometimes you have a conversation with a person and people read into everything. We'll say sometimes in life, what a person says is just what they mean. Sometimes there's no deeper meaning. Sometimes there's no hidden agenda. Sometimes, pass the salt just means pass the salt. It doesn't mean, I feel bitter. I feel a little acidic. I need a preservative in life. I don't like pepper. Sometimes what you say is just what we'll say. It's an incredible yesod because as people, as Jews, we're always looking for deeper meaning in everything. By the way, this is very helpful in marriage also. Right? Because sometimes a lot of shalom bayis problems are caused because one spouse, I'm not identifying which one it may be, but often it's not the male, right? So sometimes goes ahead and intuits or interprets certain things that the other spouse may be saying, and it's not really what they mean. But what the Gemara is saying is, on one hand, we're always looking, on all kidding aside, we're always looking for deeper meaning in everything in life. But sometimes you have to not look for such deeper meaning and just take things at their surface value. So the Rashbam says over here, before you start trying to figure out why is Rav signing with a fish and why is Rabbi Hanina signing with a date palm, like fish. And Rabbi Hanina might have just like dates. There doesn't have to be a deeper meaning to everything. This is just how they chose to sign. So what's that? Gemara, back to the Gemara. So the Gemara is suggesting maybe, in fact, Ruvain is signing, his signature is Yaakov, but not that he is taking his father's name and using that as his identity, but rather what? He's converting his father's name into what? Into a symbol, and therefore Ruvain signs with the symbol. Because I will say, what's important in this list of different signatures is, remember, you have Rav Chisda using a samech, meaning people also didn't just use images as symbols, but they also use letters as symbols, to which the Gemara says, Lo chatzif inish l'shavye l'shmei da'avu simna. So I will say, the Gemara answers, a person would not have the chutzpah to make his father's name into a symbol. The act of making your father's name into a symbol is considered to be chutzpah. Again, one would not do it. I saw actually right before davening this morning, I saw brought down the name of the Marab Shif that the poskim bring down that this is only a din in a father, that a son would use his mother's name. In other words, I will say this goes back to the Yira covered dialectic. That when it comes to parents, I will say the assumption is a person fears his father more than he fears his mother, right? But he is mechabed his mother more than he's mechabed his father. I will say that's why when the Torah discusses kibud and yira, so the Torah says again, ish imo va'aviv tiro. Torah goes out and says you have to fear your mother because it's not instinctive to fear the mother, but yet it says kabed es avicha, honor your father because it's instinctive to honor your mother. So the Maram Shif actually brings out something very interesting. The Gemara assumes a person is never going to have the chutzpah to go ahead and use their father's name as a symbol for their signature, because that would be a lack of yira. But the Maram Shif said it would be normal for a person to use their mother's name as a symbol for their signature. All right, so I'll say, so again, we're still trying to figure out the Maisa, how are we signing on the back of the Get Makosher? Marzusha comes on, Marzusha says, Marzusha Amar, Lama Lecha Kulehai. Why are you going in all of these directions? Kal Makosher She'ein Eidav Kala B'Shita Alchos Pasal. I will say, Marzusha says like this. Marzusha says, and it's actually a very interesting Havamina. The Havamina is that when we spoke about the signatures of the witnesses, lav dafka that they all have to line up. Marzucha Abosai advances a very interesting shita. Marzucha says that the spacing of the names of the witnesses must all be the same. The spacing must work, that all the signatures must begin, again, this is still in the perpendicular model. The signatures must begin, right? So we're writing perpendicularly. The first letter of the last name, the first letter of the first name must begin where? at the last line of text, and the last letter of the signature, which Rabbi said would be what? Would be the Dalit of aid, must end by the first line of text. And therefore, Rabbi said all of the signatures must line up exactly this way. So Rabbi Zutra says like this. Rabbi said, if it turns out that's what? If it turns out that now again, at the end of the day, if it turns out that somebody lops off a line of the text, and therefore Rabbi say either you're left with what? Ben the father, or even not the father, but just name and aid. Zucha says like this: the fact that you might have some people who would sign Ben their father, and the fact that you might have some people who would sign as what? Just their name and aid, that could happen. People do that, that doesn't happen. So Mazutra says, because you have to line up all of these signatures in the same way. We'll say, by the way, you see this sometimes like in Iksuva. This requires like a little bit of chachma with spacing. Sometimes you have like the more artistic suvas. So you see, like, depending on the names of the chassan and kala, so the sofer will have to stretch out certain letters. Right? You see about this. We'll have to stretch out certain letters to allow the textual symmetry to remain intact. Justification. Oh, good. Rather justification. Good. So we'll say. So again. So too over here, Marzuch is going to say you need that You need that same symmetry by the signatures. If somebody's lopping off something and you have three witnesses signing Ben their father or just their name and aid, already your antenna go up. So in other words, therefore Marzuch says this is a fail-safe against any kind of forgery. So we'll say therefore it works in all directions. You can't add on text. Why not? Why not? Because again, it's going to be below the signatures. That's the easy one, right? So you can't add on below the text because it's clear. If you add on, the signatures only begin above that additional text. That's clear. And if you start lopping off stuff and you have strange kind of signatures, like just Ben the father or just the name aid, if you have three signatures like that, already you know that something is up. So therefore, Mazutra says, any makush Rabbosai where the signatures don't begin on the same line and end on the same line, ultimately is going to be possible. So we'll say you could take a look in the Rashbam or Zutra. We're not going to go into it now. So he says, let's do one more piece for today. Amr Yitzchak. So we'll say now we're going back for just a moment. Now that what we've established is it appears that everyone is agreeing that Lamaisa again, the witnesses are signing on the back side of the get makusher. What we've also established, Rabbi, is it seems to be that Rami Bar Chama's approach, at least according to Marzutra, seems to be the most compelling. That namely, on a get makusher, the witnesses are signing perpendicular to the text, and therefore, again, halacha lamaisa, kind of forgery. Now, Rabbi, we're taking a step back. The Brisa before mentioned the idea of erasures. What we've established is Rabbi said that anytime there's an erasure where by Hakol Shara V'Kayom, our antenna goes up and something is not, meaning, actually what the Gemara said is, anytime that there's an erasure, by Hakol Shara V'Kayom, what do we say? Shara Zoramachli Pasal. Which Rabbi tells us that other types of erasures would be okay. So we're gonna talk about this now for just a moment. Amr Rav Yochanan, Kol HaMachkin, Rabbi say anytime you have some kind of erasure in a text, Yichtov V'Din Kiyumehen. So as Rabbi Yochanan says in Rabbi Yochanan, anytime you have an erasure in the shtar, so we'll say ultimately there must be some type of certification for that erasure. Now, what does that mean? Take a look at the Rashbam. With this, we're going to stop for today. So the Rashbam says, "Below Garcinon Vidin, Uperish So we'll say, as long as whenever you have erasures that are not in the place where it says Shara V'Kayim. So we'll say, remember again, Shar V'Kayim, you can't have any erasures. So anytime you have an erasure, that's not by Akol Shar V'Kayim. Shem Eiman Nikuyamin, Ika L'Neimar Shemachak B'Ziyav, V'Egia Kirtzono, La'achar Shenichtov Ashtar U La'achar Shechas Mu'aid. So what the Gemara is saying is the following. We're going to expound on this more tomorrow. That essentially, we'll say it must have been very common to have erasures in a shtar. Right? Remember again, a sofer is writing something. Could be somebody gives him the wrong information, or it could be something changes in the metzias of the shtar as the shtar is being written. I'll tell you afterwards. Right? So it could be that there are many changes. The idea is the following: you can make erasures in a shtar. Rabbi, what has to happen is there has to be an itemized list of all of the changes in the shtar made at the bottom of the document before Hakol Sharir V'Kayim. Because I will say, understand, otherwise, if you don't have an itemized list of all the ratios, then what could happen, I will say? As long as you're not erasing on Kol Sharir V'Kayim, what can you do? You can go back and edit any part of the shtar you want. So what has to happen, is we will see more tomorrow, is that you go ahead and you erase, you change, that's fine, you make a little asterisk. That asterisk corresponds to a list at the bottom of the shtar. And again, you write in the bottom of the shtar a full itemized list of all changes that took place at the shtar, and then you put Hakol Sharir V'Kayim. At that point, I will say what that does is anything that's listed there is a certified change. But if there's some additional change I find in the shtar that is not in that itemized list, then what I was saying, then it is clear that ultimately, again, that is going to be a forgery, and therefore will invalidate the shtar. So we'll stop over here for today. We'll continue with halachas of shtar.